You are tuned into Mostly Humans. The opinions and views shared by the hosts of this podcast are uniquely their own and do not reflect the view or opinions of the companies they work for. P.S. Don't sue or fire us. Thanks so much. Now let's get into the episode.
But all the things that you're going to want it to do, like have a unicorn run across the screen and give them a thumbs up with its hoof, when they press save.
A thumbs up, a hoof up.
That's been done before, and the app can do that for you.
All right. Welcome back to Mostly Humans, an AI and business podcast for everyone. We try to break down complex topics and the latest in AI to benefit you, the everyday person, and help showcase how these tools can impact your business operations today. I am Justin Wright. I'm a sales engineer by trade, but I like to think of myself as a new kind of engineer. And that actually is going to be something we're going to talk about a little bit later on. I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Bigelow.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. I'm a enterprise sales director for an AI startup. I definitely don't consider myself an engineer of any kind of skill. That said, I've been playing around with some of these tools lately, and I'm starting to feel dangerous. I'm starting to feel like I can control my own destiny a little bit with some of these generative AI tools for creating applications and games and stuff like that. So maybe that means if I'm kind of doing some engineering work, that we're all engineers now.
That is actually something I was thinking about earlier is I think everybody can be an engineer now in the sense of how to think, right? Like, so if we take engineering as like a hard skill or a specific type of engineering out of the equation, when I think about engineering, I think about the mindset around how you approach solving a problem, right? Like, how do you break a problem down or a complex problem down into steps? How do you think about those steps? It's definitely more of a way that I think you view the world as opposed to just a set of hard skills. Traditionally, a lot of those skills were kind of necessary prerequisites, right? But if you think about engineering as that like thought process, I'd be interested to know if that kind of jives with some of the things you've been thinking about with AI.
I think you're just a lot smarter than me. So you probably already had an engineering mindset. Maybe you weren't able to do all the hard skills to the level of like a traditional software engineer, even though I know that you know how to code to a degree. I think for me, it's just much simpler. It hasn't changed my mindset and my thought process to think like an engineer because I'm just not on that level. But what it has done is it's let me just entertain just some ideas I have or some hypotheses that I have to be able to use these tools. And for me, it's been like the great equalizer, like with my product teams and with my engineering teams, because I am now able to communicate my ideas and not say like, imagine if you know, it would kind of like look like a line would go across and then it would like animate and then confetti would fall. You know what I mean, right? And nobody knows what you mean. We try to use our words to communicate what's in our mind's eye. And we think we're doing a good job because we can see the picture in our head when we're communicating with people. And then when people go try to execute on your idea, of course, it doesn't work out. And like my dad, growing up, he's a graphic designer and an illustrator. My entire life, he said all of his clients have just always told him, you know, it's like this and it'll take you 2 seconds. It'll be super easy. Just design it like this. And he's like, and then I always do. And even if it's a great job, they don't like it because everyone has a picture in their head. Mm-hmm. So some of these new tools that I think we're going to chat about today are so fun for me because for the first time, I'm able to literally give somebody a link and be like, this is what I'm talking about. Can you make this real?
I would actually push back on you saying, well, first of all, you're plenty smart. Don't take anything away from yourself. But second of all, I would say you do think like an engineer because you have to be able to describe the problem that you're trying to solve to a machine in this case and have it create what you want. And you talked a little bit about this last week. You then, if you don't get what you were expecting, you refine, you go back in, you adjust the prompts, you know, maybe give it some different direction. And so today, for anybody who hasn't figured this out, we're going to dig deep into, you know, vibe coding. And I think it gets kind of this negative connotation, but I actually think it's incredibly powerful if done well. And it's now the language of software has become plain language, but not just plain language. It's become plain language that you can clearly explain. And I think the ability to actually clearly describe what you want and then adjust if you don't quite get what you want is incredibly important. And I'd love to know, before we dig too deep into some other stories that I read this last week that were quite interesting, is how do you go through that thought process of like, okay, I have an idea. I'm going to see what comes out of this. And if it's not exactly what I want, I'm going to tweak, I'm going to adjust, I'm going to refine. Like, what does that look like for you with some of these projects that you've created?
Well, first, for anyone who's thinking about this kind of stuff, there's a few different apps where you could do this very easily. So Gemini is really strong for vibe coding, which is just basically talking to AI in a chat and telling it you want to build an application or a website. Gemini is strong, and Claude is strong. The problem with those products is you can't really like publish it, just for like a lack of a better term, right? Like just publish it and make it usable by everybody. So I actually use Base 44 quite a bit for vibe coding. And again, it's important for everyone to remember, I am just a very simple salesperson. So you're not listening to an engineer here, but I have been vibe coding with Base 44, which lets you pick either the Gemini model, which is nice, or Claude's Opus 4 model. And I just go in there and I just describe what it is that I'm looking to create. And usually I'm just looking to fill a void somewhere in my sales process, right? So I think like traditionally go-to-market professionals, sales reps, customer success managers, marketers, we're always like putting our wish list into a queue for product teams to create, or for a marketing web page designer to create, or for someone over on like the growth team to piece together something for us that we could use to sell or explain our product or show it off or get someone's attention. And I just don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to wait. Now I might want them to make it awesome and make it like secure and stuff. I have no idea how to do that. But you can go into like an app like Base 44, you could tell it what you want to create, and it does an amazing job of interpreting your words and then giving you something really strong. And if you don't like it, all you have to do is just kind of point out to it where it needs to make the adjustments. And what's so cool is that these new large language models are so good at image interpretation. You can screenshot what you don't like that it did and attach that to the chat and tell it, do you see here? I drew an arrow where I don't like how you made that a square box. I want the edges to be round. And it can usually make those adjustments.
That's the super cool thing. I actually, the image thing is huge because everybody thinks differently or thinks creatively differently. So, maybe you don't consider yourself the strongest writer, but you can draw really cool diagrams of stuff that you want. You can feed that in as well with some basic instructions. Like there are so many ways that you can tackle the problem. Like you were talking about last week, you can take screenshots of a product and be like, hey, I want to make a cool demo that shows these things. Like this is screenshots from my product. We do this stuff. I can't really show it currently. Like, can you connect this thing to that thing? And being able to describe what you want now and in whatever manner works best for you is now an incredibly effective way to build software. And it's coding in the sense of vibe coding because the language of computers is code, but we now have computers that can generate that for you and they will talk to you like a human. So it's almost like you have, like one of my old roommates who's a super smart, like hacky software developer. And I could be like, hey, it would be really sweet if we did this thing or whatever. And he's like spinning up some programs. Like you can do that now. It's funny that you were talking about Base 44 because that was actually one of my notes for today. I think that story is so cool. It's literally a guy who basically like kind of vibe coded a startup, a solo founder. He had an idea. He ended up having like, I think 8 other employees working for him. It got acquired by Wix for $80 million. 25 million of that went to the employee pool, which is great. Imagine being like one of those 8 people, right? Like you get to be a part of this thing. And we were talking a little bit about this last week, but I think the coolest thing about this is, the reason software was created or started being created is to solve specific pain points as people are interacting with computers. It's like, hey, I really wish I had an app that like did this thing over here, or I don't feel like banking apps are a perfect example. Like imagine having to drive up to your bank still to like get an account statement or deposit a check, or like you can literally do that on your phone now. And somebody had to write that app because they were like, this is a really painful experience currently. I want to solve this problem. And I mean, we probably all have several problems. I have a lot of problems in my life that I wish I could solve with software that doesn't currently exist. And the cool thing now is if you can articulate that problem, you can now build your own software solutions by just being able to describe what is annoying about your current internet experience.
Yeah. I think the easiest way to think about what you're saying and what is vibe coding that, and how can people do it themselves and everything. Because again, it just sounds scary. Like Justin smart, Matt medium brain, Matt vibe coding, Justin also vibe coding. That's important for people to take away though, because they need to understand that if they're just a normal, competent person that know how to work a mouse and a keyboard, they can vibe code too. But that word code just really freaks people out. So if I'm doing it, you can do it. And I would just challenge people to think about how many times have you gone to the App Store to search for a thing? Like the App Store, whether it's Apple Store or Android App Store, is where people go when they're like, there's got to be an app for this weird problem I have. It could be people who are trying to break a habit, like biting their nails, and they're looking for a how do I stop biting my nails app, right? I'm sure there's an app for that. I'm just making that up, but I'm sure there is one.
It definitely exists.
You and I both know like one of the world's best software engineers, won't name names, but that individual, she built an app because there was a lot of apps to track your drinking, like drinking alcohol, but with the sole intent of trying to give up drinking. There's like millions of those, but not for people who like have a healthy relationship with alcohol, but just want to track their drinking without the implied you should stop drinking. And she was like, this just literally doesn't exist. But I just want to be able to track just to make sure it's a healthy level of consumption and see how its effects on my body and everything. And it just doesn't exist. So she was a software developer, and she was able to build it in 2 seconds. It probably took a couple of days, but she was able to build that pre-vibe coding. And so she told me about it, and I checked the comments, and people were like so thankful. People were like, yes, thank God, thank God. An app that isn't guilt tripping me about my alcohol consumption. I just want to track it for my own knowledge, to see certain things. And now those same people, there's dozens of people in the comments thanking her for creating that app. They could go create that for themselves right now. You know, somebody could want to create an app that helps them track their steps, but reverse engineer tracking their steps to their sleep quality. And there's just like a sleep quality app over here and a step app over here, and I just don't know how to make these things work. You can just talk to something like Base 44 or Gemini or ChatGPT, and you can start to create these things for yourself. Like if software could fix a problem, you can now fix the problem for yourself. Absolutely.
And if you're creative and you want to solve a problem in a creative way, or not even solve a problem, let's say you're tracking your steps and you want to gamify it and turn it into like some Super Mario Kart type of game where the more you walk the more shells you get or whatever, some crazy thing. You can completely customize the experience and basically recreate any apps that you like in a flavor that makes more sense to you, or something that is going to encourage you to do that thing more, or a to-do list that, is themed based on things that you like. Or if you are trying to build like a study helper or some type of, tutoring tool for your kids, you were talking about building software for your kids last week. Like you can build a tutoring app that is themed in a way that keeps your kids engaged, like something that they enjoy, whether it's, Bluey or, whatever character that they like you can definitely Bluey. One of my friends was watching Bluey the other day with no kids present. And I was like, you know what, this is cool, but also a little weird.
I do it. So I don't have kids. But when I'm around my nieces, I'm always like, guys, we totally could put Bluey on if you want. I mean, I
just throw Bluey on.
I'm like, if you guys are interested, I don't find Bluey all that amazing, but if you wanted to put it on, you could. And secretly, I'm like, God, this show is like comedic genius.
It's unbelievable. So anybody who hasn't watched Bluey, go watch Bluey and then code an app with Bluey. But we're talking about all these things that you could do. I think it's really interesting and important to ground this in a real thing that somebody made who you would never expect to make this thing. So I read a story this past week that was insane. So there was a 91-year-old man who built an app in 2 days using Claude. So vibe coded an app in 2 days, never had written a line of code in his life. I mean, obviously he was technically proficient enough to turn on his computer without calling me for help, which for anybody who has been tech support for their grandparents knows is not a common occurrence. But had never written a line of code in his life, but through his church, they ran like a community outreach program. So they would basically like coordinate, food for homeless people or community events, and so there was a lot of logistics involved, and the whole process was being managed with basically like paper and pen, and they were like tracking all this stuff. And so he created an app that automated all this stuff, basically like let people sign up for the services with QR codes, like automated mailing of follow-ups and like coordinating logistics, and even down to a thing where they were doing some like community like auto repair stuff for people whose cars were getting broken down, and it was able to cross-reference the exact part numbers that they would need based on the make and model of their car. And all of this stuff happened within this app that this guy built in 2 days, 91 years old, without ever having written a line of code in his life.
It's crazy, but then again, it's not. If you think about what are LLMs doing? So like two things, I can hold two thoughts to be true in my head at the same time. One, that's insane. And it's really cool that someone who's elderly did it as well. That just makes the story even cooler and speaks to what we talked about last week, which is truly this is the easiest tech of all time to use and the most impactful. Just talk to it. So that's so cool. But I can hold two distinct thoughts in my head true at the same time, which they say is the hallmark of intelligence. So maybe I am smart. Who knows? We'll find out.
Super smart.
We'll find out by the end of this podcast. I'm like mind blown by what we can now accomplish. But at the same time, here's what's important for the audience to know. Large language models are just patterning stuff that's been done a lot by humans, right? So humans have created things that can track parts to a VIN number. Humans have created a million databases that can query by keyword or by this, that, other thing. Humans have created millions of software applications that automatically email you a receipt of this thing or ping you over here on this platform if X, Y, and Z happens. And I think I want to empower people who are listening to this to understand that like a lot of the problems that they're looking to solve with software that they might consider vibe coding, maybe no one has fixed that exact problem before, but all the things that you're going to want it to do, like have a unicorn run across the screen and give them a thumbs up with its hoof when they press save.
A thumbs up, a hoof up.
That's been done before, and the app can do that for you. And you might want it to give them the ability to invite people and make them a sub-admin or read access only or whatever. All the stuff that you are accustomed to seeing in software, it's been done before. And if it's been done before, the LLMs know how to write that code because it's just pattern matching. So if it's been done before, you can talk to the machine and the machine can execute it for you.
And it's important to note here, because we were talking about how simple this stuff is to use last week. And I know people probably still don't believe us, but I promise we're not making it up. It's literally like your interface, at least the starting point for all this, is an open text box. It's like, what do you want to do today? Right. Yep. And you can even, if you're on mobile, you can even dictate into your phone. Like you can speak voice to text and just like hit that little ding button in the corner and just start talking and be like, I needed to do this and this and this and this, and just like brain dump. And the starting point for good software in the technical world is what we call a PRD, or product requirements document, but you don't even need to be able to write one yourself. You can start with an idea. You can word vomit. You can be like, help me turn this into like a structured requirements document. Like if I was going to give this idea to a software developer, like help me organize these thoughts, and then just vomit. And then that can be your step one. And now you have some type of, architecture of what you want to build, or some type of blueprint. And then you can kind of see what that spits out. And then you can, from there, to your point, this box is not rounded enough. I need this here. I need this here. And it just becomes this back and forth process where, just like you would describe your great idea that you swear you invented first to your friends when like some startup sells for a bunch of money, like you can go through that same process with AI. So, you're building stuff in Base 44. Like, what is your workflow like? Like how do you even get started? Because maybe somebody's listening to this and they're like, yeah, I have a great idea. This kind of makes sense, but what do I do?
Sure. So I'll give you a real example of something that I built just last week. So I was minding my own business. I had closed the laptop for the day, and I was sitting by my pool, and it was around like 6:30. Wasn't burning the midnight oil, clearly. And my mother-in-law was like, on our group thread, was like, hey, I haven't talked to you guys in a while. Sorry, I haven't responded on the group thread. Like, I'm getting started with my interior decorating and staging business that I'm trying to get started. And she's a realtor and she's like a phenomenal designer. So like, I'm super excited that she's going to start doing this and taking this on. She goes, do you know any AI tools that I can make a website with? And I know that like if she goes to Wix or something like that, who acquired Base 44, it's drag and drop and all that kind of stuff, but it's still, all that kind of stuff is still challenging. Like Wix is world class for pre LLM. How do you create a website drag and drop? But there's still a lot that goes into that. So I said, leave it with me. I'm gonna generate a prototype for you. So I opened Base 44 wirelessly on this thing. For those who are just listening on audio, I'm pointing to my phone. And the fact that I did this wirelessly blew my mind more than anything. Shouldn't. The LLM should blow my mind, but the fact that there was no wires connected, I'm sitting by a pool and I pressed the dictation button on my phone in Base 44 and I just told it everything about her and what I know. I'm like, she does really good, elegant designs. She works with like high-end clientele. She's in this area in Florida. These are the 3 counties that she would, I need you to incorporate images that would show before and after. It's okay to use stock images. I told it, I want you to create one of those sliders that shows a before image of like a kind of like shabby living room. And then you can go back and forth and click and drag it and see the before and after. I want you to have a disclaimer page, a liability page. I want you to have a page where someone can book time with her and it will sync with her calendar, which we will connect later. And options are for 15 or 30 minutes. Like I just talked to it, and before you know it, there's like 8 paragraphs of a huge run-on sentence.
Yep.
As I'm sitting by the pool, and then I'm like, this can't actually work. But you know what? Boop, and I pressed like the orange arrow on Base 44, and then it said it was thinking. And then what happened from there is it generated a pretty awesome website, and it was pretty cool. But then I just saw things from like an aesthetic standpoint I didn't like. So I went one by one and just told it what I wanted it to change. Oh, change this. The greeting page needs to be a little bit better. The home page is kind of bare. Your typical home page, when you scroll down, they animate and they do cool things, but it needs to feel elegant. So to answer your question, what was my workflow? My workflow was a massive run-on sentence, just dump of what I was thinking, see what it comes up with, and then tell it to make adjustments. It could be that easy.
That's such a cool use case of this stuff of, this is a real world problem, or, problem is maybe an overstatement, right? But this is like a task that needs to be solved somehow, right? Yep. If we rewind 10 years or even 5 years, okay, cool. You can go into Wix or Squarespace or some of these other sites. I agree with you. I think Wix, it was and is incredibly powerful for like, there's probably some template that's close to what you want. You can, throw some images in there. Maybe that, that there's a couple stock image sites that you can look for. I think they have like Unsplash directly integrated or something. So they have some, subset of images that you can use, and you could spend 4 to 6 hours like creating a website that kind of looks exactly like all the other real estate templates with like some different colors, and it might get the job done. Or you want to make these elegant changes and these animations or whatever, and now you have to hire somebody on Fiverr or Upwork or like ask somebody who knows somebody, and now you're talking about substantial output. I'll share a story with everybody, and Matt, you'll like this one because I don't think you know this story. So I work for a startup now. I am also a failed startup founder. If you have, or if you want to get a sense of what my timing as a human being is like, I launched a crypto startup right as the bear market started. Oh. So I had this really good idea, and then everybody abandoned crypto because everything was crashing, and our product just never took off. But I paid out of pocket for a front end developer to like build out prototypes for our initial website, and it was not a cheap endeavor, right? And this was to get a design that I really liked, and I thought he was super talented. But the fact of the matter is, I had to explain to him exactly what I wanted. Like, solving software developers also isn't the solution to the problem, because you still have to tell them what to build. right? So at some point, you need to be able to describe what you want either way. And the point is now that is infinitely easier and infinitely less expensive because you can get a subscription to Claude or OpenAI, or you can, Base 44 is a subscription, or you get credits, or I haven't used it enough.
Subscription. And
Okay.
it's amazing that they got acquired for $80 million because it has its quirks. And I upgraded to $200 a month just so I can get premium support, and no one got back to me on my support ticket.
Ooh, that's tough.
So sounds like
tough.
they could use you.
Yeah.
But even with that level of service, and even though it has its quirks and it had some downtime and stuff while I've used it and everything, it's still so easy to use. And yeah, you just throw in a credit card and then you can get going. And by the way, you don't have to throw in a credit card, and you could still generate, like that website I made for my mother-in-law, that could be accomplished without a credit card. Now, I don't know if you can publish it and everything without a credit card, but even that alone, just to be able to prototype your idea, even if you wanted to give it to somebody who is going to do it officially, now you have something you can show them and say, make it look exactly like this.
Yeah. I mean, even with I think ChatGPT is probably the household name. I think there's a lot of people who assume ChatGPT and AI are the same thing. It's like ChatGPT is the AI. Like, I've heard about this thing, right? But you can do image generation in ChatGPT now, like on their base. Like, a lot of this stuff is available on the free plan. There's more bells and whistles and power available if you subscribe. But even, like, think about it this way. I have spent $20 a month on way more embarrassing and less useful things in my life. And right? Like, you can get the ChatGPT Plus or whatever for $20 a month. And that gives you the ability to basically do very advanced versions of the things that we're talking about now. You can create images as like mock-ups and screenshots. You can have it, do deep research and help you come up with ideas. Like, every step in the process can be accomplished for what I consider in 2025 to be a pretty low price tag, right?
Yeah. I'm probably going to get blacklisted by every single LLM because I play with all of them every day. And I fall in love with a different one. I'm like, this is the one I'm going to use for my workflow every day. And then I run out of tokens, or run out of credits, or run out of context. And I sign up, and then I get through my project, and then I cancel. And I've done that so many times. They're either going to blacklist me because like they're going to think that I'm gaming the system too much, or they're like loving it, and they're just like, look at this guy. He comes back every single time.
Comes back for every project.
But never actually right there. I have a question for you. So, I mean, like, I've been thinking about this, like, truly a lot. All right. So you can solve business problems for yourself now, or personal problems, because if software could fix it, you cannot fix it for yourself if you're willing to talk to this box and then just tell this box what you want to change if you don't like its output. Cool. We agree. Oh yeah, I'll agree on that, hopefully by this point. What does that mean then for software, right? Like, truly think about it. A lot of software for the last like 15, 20 years, like, which is like the cloud era. I know a lot of GTM folks are listening to this podcast. A lot of people have built their careers in tech, riding the wave of some software company that solved a problem. I have recreated highly competitive for fun versions of other products that I see out in the market doing AI stuff using vibe coding. And I'm thinking to myself, that's pretty profound. So I think software is now a commodity. It used to be we need to pay somebody $300,000 to do front-end development and then somebody else to do QA and all this kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. My question is, like, what's going to differentiate software companies in the future? Because, like, so much venture capital is poured into SaaS. You get like 20x multipliers on revenue and all that kind of stuff because people are like, oh, the overhead is relatively low. And you can really hyperscale it fast. So VCs loved it. It's like, if everyone can create their own SaaS, what differentiates something? Like, for example, I know I asked you a question, but I have one more thing to say. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent here. But this stuff really, I find it so thought-provoking, and also, like, I'm just trying to formulate my own opinion on it. And that is, like, once we all had... Run this back. Okay. Back in the day... we all used to like grow our own plants and all that kind of stuff and then raise our own cattle. This is, 100, 150 years ago. People did this to survive.
This is quite a tangent. I like this. Keep going.
Welcome to my crazy brain. And
So we
then
used to raise cattle, and then AI happened. Yeah, continue.
big jump there. And then what happened? Then we started to move into like the agricultural revolution, and then we had like supermarkets, right? And if
Mhm.
you can make it so easy and so affordable that it becomes a commodity, people will then adopt that as their new way of life, and people generally don't um, plant and forage for their own food anymore, and they definitely don't raise their own cattle, all that kind of stuff, right? But there was once a time where if you wanted somebody else to provide food for you or something like that, it was going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Yeah.
Right? So like you were either going to do your own thing, or if you wanted to like the version of Uber Eats like 100 years ago, like you'd have to be like super wealthy to have someone else prepare a meal for you and do all that kind of stuff. Right?
Mhm.
That's kind of like software. Once it becomes a commodity, prices go down, margins become razor thin, right? And it's kind of like a race to the bottom. Software has always been charged as like a premium enterprise software. You have like
Mhm.
Salesforce and Google and Microsoft and all this kinds of stuff because there was just a limited universe of the people that could actually create that stuff. So my
Yeah.
long-winded question to you is, what is the future of software? Like, if everyone can create it, is software going to be a good career moving forward?
Man, what a question. Um, and I will start with a funny point that you reminded me of, where I read a story recently. There was a guy who saw the Dropbox bill for his company and like vomited almost because it was like so expensive. And he's like, "This is literally just like, so people can sign our documents." And he basically built his own Dropbox vibe coding in a day, and they sent him a cease and desist letter. And he was like, "All right, cool." So he just made it freely available for like anybody who wanted it. And so I think we'll see stories like that. I think companies that are hanging on to their software solution, like the actual program and code itself as the holy grail, is going to be like Blockbuster versus Netflix. I do think we're approaching that. I also think there's nuance to this, right? Look at financial services as an example. There's a lot of stuff still today in the finance industry that is, quote, inefficient because it's relationship and trust driven, where it's not so much about the solution that's necessarily better or worse or whatever. It's that there's certain checks and balances and certain protocols and like a certain way of doing things that will pervade in that industry till the end of time, right? So I think there's an interesting dichotomy. I think that there are always going to be companies that are going to need to provide the infrastructure for this stuff, because I don't think anyone wants or people are afraid of just letting the terminators and machines run wild and build their own software ecosystem and just like let it rip, right? There needs to be some infrastructure component to that. But I think what we need to do is think about the holistic system now. It doesn't matter that you have Dropbox or DocuSign or whatever else thing, right? What matters is how that fits into customer workflows, how that fits into the ecosystems of these products, like how these software layers interact. I think it can be really interesting too to even look at like licensing models. So you use these AI tools to allow customers to personalize your software to their use case,
Ah.
where now it's you own the software, but it's really more of a licensing thing. Like you're giving people the right to use your DocuSign, but if they want to, have it be fancy digital letterhead, then they can use your product, they can prompt it and create this new experience. So I think software is going to become more like this living, breathing thing. I think there's still an infrastructure layer that's required. I think the companies that understand like this holistic system and how things are going to play together are going to do really well. But if you're holding on and saying like, "Hey, I know my app is awesome. I don't I don't think anybody can build anything better," and that's your like value proposition, I think you're going out of business.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I think back to several CEOs ago. I had a CEO who was a technical founder, and one of the things we were talking about a competitor that was becoming a thorn in our side, and he was like, "I promise you, dude." He's like, "They're not ready for scale." Like, because they started becoming more and more successful. He's like, "They're not ready for scale." He's like, "Let me help you understand this." He's like, "I could build at the time Twitter tomorrow." He's like, "I know how to build that. It's not that hard." He goes, "I could never build the scale of Twitter."
Mhm.
He's like, the amount of tweets and edits and saves and real-time feeds and custom algorithms and personalization and stuff that's happening in any given second. He's like, I would need an absolute army of people. He's like, but could I build their UI in 24 hours if you really twisted my arm? Yeah, I could. Well, now I'm him, right? So I also could rebuild X or Truth Social or
Right.
Facebook or whatever these UIs are, because they all basically look the same threads. I
Mhm.
could rebuild any of them with vibe coding, but I think what you hit on the an infrastructure, and for people who don't follow what we're saying when it comes to like infrastructure, it's just what happens when 100,000 people press save at the same time in an app?
Right.
Can your app handle that? Okay, you can handle 100,000. Can it handle 2 million? And is there ability to do that? And does it become vulnerable from a security standpoint? So I think what's interesting is like you and I could sit back and say, okay, so if your company has strong infrastructure and strong security, which is going to matter a
Mhm.
lot on the B2B standpoint,
Mhm.
that will make your software company relevant. But then what if we're vibe coding infrastructure and vibe coding security 12 months from now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
possible. Um, it's interesting. It's right. Like, I spent a lot of time, at my company talking to some of our engineers on like the DevOps side, which is basically these are the people that make sure the servers don't blow up when they shouldn't blow up. It's a very important job,
yep,
and it's
sure is.
it's you don't like it's one of those things where. And I mean this in the best way possible because I have so much respect for them. You don't want to know that they work for your company. And like I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean like if they do their job well, that like you don't even know that what they're doing is happening. It's that critical, but it's also something that is that invisible to day-to-day operations. It's not the sexy, UI that shoots confetti at you with the unicorn giving you the hooves up and whatever. Like but it's the fundamental stuff that allows that to happen without blowing up. Because with software or users, cool, you vibe code a project. You make your Twitter clone. Okay, Twitter's not that fun if it's me talking to you. Eventually, you run out of like memes to send each other or whatever, right? Like if you want to get 100,000 people on there, or you have these network effects, there's a lot of stuff under the hood that needs to be working well at all times with no disruptions for that software to be meaningful, for it to have any value, for people to actually want to use your product. So this is actually a really interesting rabbit hole that we've gone down, and I'm glad you brought it up because I think the sweet spot for vibe coding is these like, I need to solve my unique problem that looks this way. I know that
Uh-huh.
there's an app that kind of does half of it. I know this other app that I've tried does like another third of it, but it, there's nothing that is a holistic solution to the thing in my life that is frustrating me or that is causing me to waste time. You now have the ability to solve your unique problem. And so I think that's the type of software that gets commoditized, but
Yeah.
there's still going to be things that rely on massive infrastructure, massive data centers that rely on just network effects. Like any social platform requires there to be people to be social with, or it's not that fun.
Yep. I think what the analogy you were looking for DevOps is the offensive line of
Yes.
B2B software.
Uh,
If
Excellent
you are
comparison.
talking about an offensive lineman, that's a bad thing. The offensive lineman, I played offensive line growing up. So we refer to ourselves as hog mollies. That's a real thing. Um, and if you are talking about us, we have screwed up. We should be invisible. Let the star quarterback throw the pass to the wide receiver to get the touchdown. They get all the glory. And if you're talking about us, it's because we messed up or something went wrong, but we're critical to making sure that things don't malfunction.
Mhm.
DevOps equals offensive line. But one of the things that like my current hypothesis, which we will go back and listen to this podcast, uh, you know, 12 months from now, and I will feel very stupid for this prediction. But okay, you and I agree that infrastructure and security isn't solved by vibe coding. You and I
Mhm.
both also agree if you personally have a little need, like you want to build a website or you want step trackers that reverse engineer and look at your quality of sleep from your Apple Watch, you can figure out how to do that. We agree on that. That's today's differentiation. But I think tomorrow's differentiation is this. I believe that B2B SaaS they figure out who their ICP is, they kind of figure out what problem their ICP is looking to solve, and then they market to it, and it solves about 70% of their entire ICP, which ideal customer profile, fancy B2B SaaS term. just who do you sell the thing to?
Yep. Yep.
And they solve 70% of their customers' needs.
Mhm.
Now, some customers, they might solve 95%. The other one, they solve like 45%, but I think it nets to around customers that are about 70% happy, which
Yep.
means because they have creative salespeople, about 80% were new. And like the industry benchmark for churn and renewals being good is in like the high 80s, right?
Mhm.
So I believe you will need to be very willing to customize the last mile for your customer to get their problem 98, 99% solved. Because I think they can get to 60 or 70% security and infrastructure aside on their own solved with vibe coding. So people are no longer going to accept that I'm gonna buy an incomplete solution. I think as GTM professionals who are listening to this are thinking about what companies they want to work for, is the company that they're working for today set up for success? Even if they're not an AI company, you don't have to be an AI company, but they need to be asking themselves like, is my product, is my company moving in a direction where we can differentiate ourselves by being open to customizing our foundational solution to meet our customers' needs entirely?
Yeah.
And
I
you
think
see
it's
this
a
with
great point.
OpenAI, right? OpenAI just announced a huge services push. For like 3.5 years, they were like, buy ChatGPT Enterprise or buy the API and do whatever the hell you want with it. We're not
Yep.
really going to help you.
Yep.
And we're going to be $1 trillion company. Now they're like, services, though, we might need to customize. So I think we might see a resurgence of services in software instead of just, here's my one size fits all thing, buy it or don't.
Yeah. I think so too. I think um, also legacy providers or these behemoth companies that aren't willing to be flexible in that way and are holding on to the fact that they're the, the big fish in the small pond or whatever. I think they're going to have a reality check where, and we're already starting to see this, right? I think you're starting to see true startups run by small teams of people who are willing to adapt to or build in the flexibility to solve that last mile of needs for their customers, have incredible success stories, right? Like that's been one of the coolest things from like being in tech for the AI wave is watching companies like Base 44 get acquired for a ton of money, because what it means is that there's a market for small teams that can be flexible, that can do things well, that can actually listen to their customers. And I mean, not to get too philosophical about AI, but net, I think one of the huge benefits of this tech is just a massive improvement in quality of life for the end customer, for the
Yeah.
person sitting at home who's buying an app or buying software or is like trying to find, something that solves their problems. There's there's now the opportunity to have so many more solutions in the marketplace, which I think net is better for people. It's certainly not better for bottom lines of some of these big companies, but I do think it lends itself to an environment now where it's going to make software better because it's going to have to be. You can't just sit back and be like, yeah, we don't do that thing and we're never going to put that button there. So good luck,
So for those who've been in software for a long time, they have definitely been on the receiving end of a customer success manager communicating on behalf of the product team saying, we're not going to put that button there. And you're like, God, if you just put that button there, your product would not drive me so crazy, and you want to churn, but you can't. I think like there's something that's really interesting, like the behemoths of tech, the tech titans, if you will. I don't want to sit here and say that they're in trouble because they're not, for very different reasons.
Mhm.
A lot of them are tied up in hardware as well. Like the
Mhm.
biggest in the world, they're tied up with hardware quite a bit. And we need their cloud services to make our little vibe coding thing ever work and have global distribution and etc.
Yes.
So for GTM professionals who are working for those huge companies, like, yeah, obviously keep your head on a swivel and make sure that your company is moving in a direction where you think that your particular role is still going to be very, very needed. But those companies, they're going to be here. And a lot of those companies grow through mergers and acquisitions anyway. So you see them start to gobble up some of these companies that are doing stuff. I think it's the companies in the middle that are in for a rude awakening.
Mhm.
And I don't think a lot, I think a lot of them have acquired massive amounts of tech debt. Again, ignorant sales guy, my understanding of tech debt is effectively you could code things one of two ways. You could code them right, but it's going to take you a really long time. And as you write that code, you make sure that just because you plug the hole here, it doesn't burst the hole over here. Or you can do it super, super fast, super dirty, so you can keep on moving and you hope and pray nothing breaks. And then over time, you do this because you make lots of custom features and doodads for your customers. All of a sudden, you have so much technical debt and so many piecemeal solutions and band-aids everywhere, keeping the canoe from sinking. Let's use that as an analogy. The boat starts to sink because band-aids aren't going to keep it afloat forever.
Yeah.
Those companies, without massive distribution, without huge partner networks, without having a huge hardware component and don't have the cash for M&A, those are the companies where if I'm a GTM professional, I'm looking at my company and asking, like, are we going to differentiate ourselves with our humans, with our mostly humans professional
Mostly
services?
humans.
Like, are we going to take the solution to customize it for our clients and charge a premium for that? Or are we going to get disrupted by the fact that we've only ever met 70% of our customers' needs and they can kind of do that for themselves now?
Yeah. You opened up a few cans of worms. One, the canoe analogy reminded me of one of my old bosses many moons ago thought that Flex Seal was the solution to all problems.
It kind of is. If you haven't tried it, it kind of is.
I mean, it kind of is, but I'm picturing just like a canoe that is 99% Flex Seal and just like, like floating down the river. So that was a fun mental image when you were talking about that. But you're talking about this willingness to to customize, to lean on the people to do this thing, and technical debt is a whole separate rabbit hole. So very, very accurate. It's the classic triangle. You can do things well, cheaply, or quickly, and you cannot do all three at once. And so it's what is the balance of how you solve problems? Because the reality is a lot of times if those listening have worked in tech for any amount of time, customers want things. All customers want things yesterday, and every customer's problem is the most important problem to them. And we are in the business of making our customers happy. And so that requires you sometimes to ship things quickly. But there is a trade-off where eventually you have to go back and remove the duct tape, figure out what the hell it looks like underneath, and like try to do it the right way. And so that's a very accurate way to think about the problem is like too much tech debt. You don't have the ability, next thing you know, you have this infinitely customizable form, but there's like 27 radio buttons and it's just a monstrosity of an application that can be made much simpler. Right. But I think that is such a relevant point here. And this whole time that you're talking about this stuff, what I'm really thinking about is, because obviously, or hopefully a lot of the people listening to this have some experience working in tech or understand that side of the business, but a lot of people are probably just generally interested in AI. And you kind of gave this like slightly motivational speech last time that got me fired up about like, hey, these tools allow you to like pursue your dreams or figure out how to make more money or your side hustle or whatever. But something that I think is an important thing to kind of close out today talking about is you now as a general person have a tool where if you have an interesting idea, I always go back to, and I'm going all over the place here. It's going to come full circle, I promise. There's Kevin Kelly's article, 1,000 True Fans, which I hope this podcast has sooner rather than later. But his whole thing is like, you don't need to make something for everyone. If you're creating content or you're writing or whatever, you want to get 1,000 true fans, like loyal people who tune in because they like you, they like what you're saying, they're on the same wavelength, right? You now have the ability to make software for 1,000 true fans to get distribution because the internet can reach everyone. And you can literally today make life-changing income, taking yourself from wherever you are now to you want to buy a boat and that isn't Flex Seal and sail down the river or whatever. Like if there's financial goals that you have or freedom that you want to acquire in your life, maybe you're worried about retirement and you haven't put enough money away, or you want to put your kid through college or whatever your motivation is. You want to buy a vacation house, whatever it is. If you can find a niche audience and build a product that they love for them, you now have the ability to do that without hiring software developers, without dropping a ton of budget up front. Like, to me, that's potentially the coolest part of all this. Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, everybody loves the idea of like passive income, mailbox money, right? And I love this idea of 1,000 true fans. I'm not familiar with that. I'm gonna check that out. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm familiar, but it sounds really smart. But like, let's say you built an application that solves a real issue. Like, let's say you work at a local pizza parlor and you know that there is just like something that's just kind of wrong with these like toast and clover and all the kinds of like the solutions that are kind of very big in the food industry. Maybe you find that there's something that's just fundamentally wrong with those that it's missing. Now, all those uh, all those mom and pop pizza parlors, they're not going to stop using Clover or Toast. But maybe your thing is an add-on, and you make it so dirt cheap that you get 1,000 pizza parlors to each give you $2 a month. That's 24K a year. So it's like you can't probably recreate the billing of Clover and Toast and the fact that it lets people pick their shift and it does insurance and liability. You probably can't do all that, but you can just build this little feature widget add-on that solves a problem that you've been struggling with as someone who's worked at a pizza parlor for 15 years and get 1,000 pizza parlors to give you $2 a month, right? Now,
Yeah.
let's say you find two more problems that you can solve vibe coding in a few days, just like that 91-year-old, right? And now all of a sudden you're at like $72,000 of passive income per year coming in through somebody's credit card. Like my dad told me this story. I'm going to botch the quote just like I botched the quote last
You're
episode.
not great with quotes. We
No.
get the general idea, but you know.
Yeah. My dad told me that basically I think it was the founder of McDonald's many years ago said something along the lines of like, no, it was actually, I think it was like Time Warner. It wasn't McDonald's. McDonald's is a different one. Quote for next episode. But if someone from Time Warner said, if you really want to be successful in life, you have to find something that lots of people are willing to give you a little bit of money for.
Yeah.
And they were talking about at that time, like cable was like $20 a month, right? And I think like people really can change their lives. Like you and I have touched on a couple topics today. Like one, if you're in SaaS and you're listening to this, heed my advice and ask yourself these questions. Like, is your company built for the fact that people can kind of rebuild your company's software? And if the answer is yes, then keep rocking with them. If not, look at your options.
Yeah.
But for the rest of us, there's going to be a long time before society catches up and starts vibe coding their own stuff. So there is
Yeah.
a lot of passive income to be made, I think, or side hustle income to be made by solving problems if you're just willing to try to vibe code. This time, 36 months from now, everyone's going to be doing it. I believe that. But
Well, it'll be easier to do then
Yeah.
also as tools improve, right?
yeah, but for right now, there's a lot of money that people can make solving small niche problems and by vibe coding. So I think, yeah, there's a big picture to be worried about if you're in SaaS, but there's also this amazing opportunity if you're not in it to create solutions for your little unique industry before others start doing it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, people are like, oh, they're afraid to miss the wave or they're afraid to start or whatever. Like it's still early and the stuff is changing every day. Like, I mean, just recently we have the ability really like these tools have gotten powerful enough where you can make end-to-end apps or websites like very, very simply. Like this isn't something that's been out for a year already. Like we're talking recent developments in the last several months, right? So if you're willing to roll up your sleeves a little bit and play around with this stuff now, like you're still early. Don't worry. You know, to Matt's point, there's plenty of time. And I think, you know, to people who say, oh, I'm not technical, I can't do any of this stuff. I guarantee you have at some point in your life, at least once, and if not, I can't help you, but at least once you have accurately described an idea to somebody, or you have told somebody a story that resonated with them, or you have been able to, you know, jot down a diagram of something that you want and then maybe even built it, right? Like at some point you have done one of those things or a combination of those things. And so if we talk about like how easy it is to get started, you will not write a program by vibe coding. Disclaimer, if you do, don't blame me, but you will not write a program vibe coding that like blows up your computer and drains your bank account. So it's very hard to do that. So like make a simple game, right? Like the number of stupid games that people, and by people I mean me, have played on their phone that were made by some random shop, right? Like make a game. It doesn't even need to be for your phone. Like make a browser game, like recreate Snake, like the old Snake game where you eat the fruit or whatever. One of the best, right? Like recreate that game by talking to, you know, Claude or ChatGPT, typing in what you want it to do. And then when you see it working, give it more instructions, make it better, like add more things, make the snake a unicorn with a hoof across the screen, to what Matt was talking about. Like start with exactly. Start with something small. And then when you see how truly easy the process is, there will be challenges. There's a learning curve, but that's why you iterate, right? Like go through it a couple times, see what happens. I think if you can just get over that initial fear, that initial hurdle of doing this stuff and just try with a small project, that would be my advice to anybody who's listening to this and thinks this stuff is kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know what you would add on to that or if you would agree, but
I would say I would wrap it up like this for this episode for people. Just don't call it vibe coding, right?
yes.
Call it talking to the box and telling it to make the thing you want it to make. And that all of a sudden, I know that's a mouthful. There's a lot of hyphens in there.
Yeah, we can shorten that next episode. We'll come up with a better version.
But I'm telling you, if you call it that to people, like I've made LinkedIn posts about this, just tell the box what you want it to do. Just type into the box over and over again. That would make more people do it. When you hear vibe coding, the first time I vibe coded, true vulnerable story. The first time I vibe coded, when I was done and I made an app, I thought vibe coding was still some different thing than what I did.
You're like, when does
Truly.
the vibe coding start?
Yeah.
I did this thing, but like,
I had heard a lot about it, like in like the social media ether, and I built an app by just typing into the box what I want it to do, and then I still thought this vibe coding thing was like a different thing that like because it sounded technical even for me as somebody who's like really experimenting every day with this stuff. I was like, but vibe coding sounds like something that I didn't do. I found out what I had just done was vibe coding. So if you just take that word out and just say type in whatever you want, it'll make the thing that you want. If you don't like it, tell it what you want it to change. More people will do it. And I hope the people who have listened to this are eagerly getting ready to build something that they want to build right now, because I promise you, it is so cool. It's like you hate IKEA furniture, right? But when you're done, you step back, you're like, I built it. It looks good. You're like, that's awesome. When you create, humans like to create. When you create something that you pictured in your mind's eye and then it's done, you step back and look at it, it is like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe, but I guarantee those people will get an endorphin rush.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. Just so next week we'll come up with a condensed version of just type into the box and tell it what you want, and then it makes the thing. But until then, if anybody has ideas for something other than vibe coding to call it, let us know. Share your vibe coding projects. Love to see what you guys make. Please, if anything, be inspired to just try it. Talk to the box, tell it what you want, see what happens. You might surprise yourself. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Mostly Humans, trying to simplify complex AI topics for the everyday person, telling you how you can add this stuff to your life to improve your life and your business. That's all I got. Matt, thanks for joining. Always a pleasure.
See you next time, everybody. Code some apps.
Code some apps. Bye-bye.